I think it's time to bring in our fearless leader, Chip Anderson.
Good morning, Chip. Welcome back.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I don't know about fearless leader, but I'm a leader of some kind, I guess. So today we want to talk about cloud-based investing, and cloud-based investing meaning not investing in the companies that work with the cloud, but cloud-based investing using Ichimoku Cloud Charts. And so first off, the name, obviously Japanese, and my Japanese is horrible. And so a lot of people get tripped up by that. So I typically just try and simplify things. I try and make sure that the most important pieces of the puzzle are explained well. You can get into a lot of detail with Ichimoku Clouds, and I have some resources, some references at the end of this presentation for the people that want to go really deep. But I'm going to give you a high-level perspective on things, and basically try and keep the nomenclature and the terminology to a minimum. So I'm just going to call these cloud charts from now on, and I'm going to use the English names rather than the Japanese names, because again, my Japanese is horrible. Anyway, here's what they look like. It's this red and green and area that you see streaming through the cloud, and then there are optionally, we'll talk about this, 3 lines, a red line, a blue line, and a green line that you can add on top of this. One of the things that's really interesting about Ichimoku Cloud's charts is that they do a little bit of prediction into the future. It's one of the few technical indicators that we have that actually goes and tries to show you a little bit of what might happen down the road. And so people really do like cloud charts for that reason. They're visual, and they have a little bit of a predictive characteristic to them. They're mainly used for visual analysis. In other words, your eyeball is used to figure out how the cloud is interacting with the price bars and how the different lines are interacting. We do have some scan capability with cloud charts, but it's limited. Let's get into how they're constructed. Just again, this is more kind of background information. Once you're familiar with them, you don't really need to know how the lines are calculated. But basically, again, they're 5 lines. While you can put the cloud chart overlay on top of any kind of chart, including bar charts and other things, it is recommended strongly that they be used with candlestick charts. That was their original design point, and it makes a lot of sense to use the cloud charts with candlesticks. And as I showed you, there's extra space on the right that's automatically added, and that is for the predictive characteristics of the cloud. Again, the green and red area is the cloud. And it is essentially shifted to the right 26 days. The 26 days is how much that extra space on the right represents. And as we'll see, you can use a whole lot of interpretation with just the cloud itself. That's the first thing we're going to do. And then after we do that, we're going to come back and look at the 3 lines or spans that are associated with the cloud. The conversion line, which is blue, the baseline, which is red, and the lagging line, which is green. So how do you create one of these charts on StockCharts? First off, you create a Japanese candlestick chart using sharp charts. I'll have a demo of this in just a second. Then you find the overlays drop down. A cloud is not a type of chart. Instead, it is an overlay that you can add to a chart. There are 2 options now for Ichimoku Cloud Charts. The first one is just Ichimoku Cloud, and that's just the cloud itself without those additional lines. That's the one I recommend people start with when you're starting out with this stuff. And so if you select the cloud option and then click update, and the overlays drop down, you'll see what I'm talking about. And this is an example of one taken from yesterday, XLK, the technology sector. This is just the cloud without the lines. And so what we're starting to be looking at is the interaction of the candlesticks with the cloud itself. Also the color of the cloud, when the color is changing, and then also how the candlesticks interact. So you'll see the cloud represents, can be used to represent support and resistance. In the most general simplistic analysis of cloud, that's what you're looking for. Use the cloud for support and resistance. A green cloud, it means that the stock is in an uptrend. A red cloud means the stock is in a downtrend. Obviously, as you can tell, the price bars will move across the cloud. When the price bars are inside the cloud, it represents indecision. That's the standard, typical kind of no-brainer approach to using these things. So here, just to put it into words, typically you use cloud charts with daily charts. And if you're doing that, then they will give mid to long-term signals. So they'll give signals that are good for a couple of weeks to a couple of months, depending. As I mentioned, the cloud itself is a support and resistance area. Prices above the cloud mean we're in an uptrend. Prices below the cloud mean we're in a downtrend. If the cloud's green, then the uptrend is strong. If it's red, the downtrend is strong. And as I mentioned, prices within the cloud, it shows indecision. In other words, it shows sideways movement. Another thing that's very interesting and something to keep in mind is the width of the cloud. As the cloud gets wider, then these signals are stronger. All of this, of course, is a very subjective, not objective type of analysis. But those are the standard rules for looking at the cloud and kind of figuring out what the cloud is meaning and telling you. So let's look at this one. Here's the industrial sector, which has been a little more in a downtrend recently, a longer term downtrend, and we can see more red on this chart than we saw on the technology sector. The technology sector was generally an uptrend. We saw lots of green. At this point, we were seeing green up until about the middle of March, and then we got our first little batch of red, a lot of indecision, and then we got some more decisiveness of red. And then interestingly, looking into the future, the cloud turns green again. And we'll have to see if that comes into play. But anyway, so that's just a quick and dirty illustration of the cloud there. Here's the cloud with a stock. We'll pick Apple. I would say generally an uptrend because we see lots of green, a couple of periods of indecision with the red. And also we see the cloud or the prices bouncing off the cloud in a couple of cases in some really nice ways. So here was a bounce recently off the cloud, bounce down here off the cloud. And it happens in both ways. We see a gap kind of moving through the cloud in this case. So lots of interesting signals being generated just by using the cloud itself and not any of the additional lines. Time for a quick demo. Starting at the members workbench, the cloud stuff that I'm showing you is part of our Sharp Charts tool. So of course you just get to Sharp Charts by typing in a ticker symbol or clicking on a ticker symbol, and now you're on the Sharp Charts workbench. This is where all the work is done. Here's my standard settings for a chart that I typically look at. To turn this into a cloud chart, we're going to do a couple of things. The first is we're going to take this and turn it into a candlestick chart. I also want to get rid of the red and the black, so I just turn this down color to black. That will do that. We don't need volume for cloud analysis. And then in the overlays, here are the two settings that I was mentioning. There's the cloud by itself, and then the cloud with the additional lines. I'm going to choose cloud by itself. And when you're using the cloud chart, you typically, you don't have to use other indicators, so I'm going to get rid of my MACD. And so now I hit update, and we see the kind of chart that I was just showing you a minute ago. There we go. Those are the settings. And now I could save this as a chart style. I can make it my default chart if I really liked it. I can put it into little buttons, or I can just simply type other ticker symbols and have it immediately show me what's going on there. So Amazon is looking pretty green. Amazon has a very green cloud. So that's the quick demo. All right. So as I mentioned, there's the other setting that you can use that has the additional lines. And so that's the full cloud chart. And so here's an example with the additional lines. This is the same example we looked at a second ago with Apple. And we see the lines make the chart a little busier, which is why I don't start out with these. You use the Ichimoku Cloud full in the overlays dropdown. But now let's talk about those three lines and what they mean and how you interpret them. They're called span lines, and I call the signals that they generate span signals as opposed to cloud signals. So the first thing is the red and the blue lines. The red and the blue lines are called the conversion line and the baseline, and their interaction is something else that can be really interesting and give you some nice signals to consider. First, if the blue is above the red, it's considered bullish, and if the red is above the blue, it's considered bearish. These are generally shorter term signals, possibly week long, maybe up to a month long. But you can get even shorter signals and more interesting signals by comparing not only the red and the blue line to themselves, but also the red and the blue line to their position of the cloud, to the relationship of the cloud itself. So if blue is above red, which we just said is a bullish situation, but that's also above the cloud, then it's more bullish. If blue is below red and it's below the cloud, then that's more bearish. So it's not just this relationship here, it's also the relationship to the cloud itself. So here's an example on that, going back to the Apple chart. We see the blue line up above and the red line down below. Blue above red is generally bullish. In this case, it's above the cloud, so it's nice bullish. However, at this point where I circled in yellow, the lines crossed. Okay, and so that was a bearish signal, but it happened above the cloud, so it's not super bearish. Does that make sense? Similarly, it took a little bit of time for the two to unwind, but here is where red moved back above blue as well, and that was a bearish situation. They crossed back, and this was bullish. They crossed back again, and this was bearish. Took a little bit of time for them to straighten things out, but they crossed here. Blue above red is bullish, and blue above red above the cloud is bullish. And now recently they've crossed back below. Blue below red is bearish. Still above the cloud, so not the end of the world for Apple, but getting there. So you kind of see how that works. That's how that works. That's the most important thing. So you get a lot of different signals with the clouds. The final line I have to talk about is the green lagging span line. Now this line, I'm a skeptic of. I'll be honest with you. I'm not buying what this line is selling. But anyway, first off, let me just tell you what it is. It is literally the price movement shifted back, I believe, 26 candles. So if I turned my chart of Apple here from a candlestick chart into a line chart, you would see the exact same line that you see here in green, only you'd see it shifted forward 26, so that it was current. So this green line is a line chart of Apple shifted to the left 26 times. And as I researched it, it says that it's used for finding support and resistance areas, which it can easily do. As you see, I've drawn here a nice kind of support and resistance area looking place with my yellow trend line. I'm matching up this peak here and this peak here and this peak here and this peak here. They all match up quite nicely, but it's a lie. It's a bit of a lie because again, this is the same as this only 26 days earlier. So the fact that this peak and this peak line up is not relevant. That's always going to be true. The fact that this peak and this peak line up is also going to always be true.
Hey, Chip.
Yes.
So if I use a chart like this, can I trade 26 days ago?
You absolutely can. I think your broker might have an issue with that, but that's your challenge.
I'm trying to figure this one out.
Yeah. So I'm not, again, the green line, not fully getting it. Maybe I need to go back and read the books a little more, but it has been used or is said to be used to help find and make us support areas more obvious. I like the cloud itself, and the red and the blue lines are interesting, but I think the most important thing to me is the cloud. As I mentioned, this can be a self-fulfilling prophecy with this lagging span. Anyway, so there's a lot more information up on the web. We have a great Ichimoku article in Chart School, and so you can just go into StockCharts and hit the search and find that article by typing in Cloud Chart or typing in Ichimoku. And then you can go to our store and also search for Ichimoku. You'll find these two books. They're great books. They've been around for quite some time. There are actually a couple other books that are out there as well. The bottom line here is we love any kind of interesting way to visualize what's going on in the market. That's what StockCharts is all about, visualizing the market. And clearly, cloud charts are a very different way of visualizing what's happening, kind of maybe confirming, or if you think you see something in a chart, then add the cloud to it and see if the cloud causes you to, if it confirms what you think you saw, or if it maybe challenges what you think you saw. I think that's its biggest, most useful aspect. Well, I appreciate it, everybody. I hope this helps. Again, if it allows you to visualize the market better, then that's the goal. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Chip.